Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our September 9th council meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Here.
Mr. Meneghini?
Here.
Dr. Hayes? Mr. Gottstein?
Here.
Mr. Babalani?
Here.
Need approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of August 19th. Any additions or corrections?
Make a motion we approve the minutes of August 19th, 2013.
Support.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Meneghini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Need approval of the manifest 2013-17 in the amount of $1,032,724.59. I would like to say, before we go into the questions on this, just about 700,000 of that is taxes that are a pass-through that we collect and then distribute out to other taxing agencies. Mark.
I got a couple, Jeremy. On page 1, down on the police side, I see that the camcorder repair due to the rough roads, is that in the new vehicle?
Yes.
That, how come it's not rubber mounted?
I don't know the mounting system on it. I'd have to check to see.
Yeah, because
kind of-
typically that stuff is rubber mounted. And then there's a memory card for the police camera. If it's a new camera, we shouldn't need a memory card unless there was no memory card in the beginning for that unit.
Further operation, they use a card, memory stick.
But I mean, when we got the new car and the new camera, there was no card put in it at that point?
They each individually go.
Each officer has one for their shift.
Yeah,
So
for
that
their
way,
shift and-
that way they can have it for evidence or if they have to go back to review.
Right.
Okay. Page 2, Ray, under the recreation department, the Steinberg porta potty down by the soccer fields, 255, are we still looking at putting in a porta john by that well site? Where that house was taken out?
Yeah, that's as part of the overall plan for down there is to put a bathroom.
Do you have any idea, is that time stated?
No,
yet?
it's basically dependent on project, like grant or, moving a project forward. It wasn't a single item that we put it as a whole overall plan for that area.
Is that on the plan with the tennis courts, when the tennis
No,
courts,
no,
is that something different?
That's something different.
Okay. Under the electric side, the page number is missing here. It looks like it's maybe page 4 or 5. The credit, Mary, for the bypass switches, is that something that we ordered and we didn't use, or is that something that was bought and paid for and was the wrong part, 3,700?
I'll have to look into it, Mark. I'm gonna guess it's something we bought and paid for, and they give us a credit memo. You know, whether it was the wrong type or just something we didn't need, I'll have to check into it.
Okay. On the golf carts, right under the golf side, is that half of the payment? I didn't remember how much they were running. That's $4,200, $4,195 per cart. Is that just one payment of 2?
That should be,
Each cart is
That's-
$41.95.
yeah.
That's the full price.
That's the full price.
yeah.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, Chris.
Had one on electric for ZNR Electric. There was a repair on hydrant unit number 4 for $952. Just kind of wondering what that was.
I don't know, I'll have to get back to you on that one.
And Mark got the rest of mine. That's all I had.
Okay, Dr. Hayes.
No questions.
Please.
Oh, I've had 3 of them asked and answered already, except under electrical, page 5, IR scan electric, $695. what? Faith Technologies, Inc., IR Scan Dash Electric. What is that?
I'll have to get that information.
Okay. And one other thing here, let's see. More of a curiosity than anything, but this seems awful high. Under the Gulf Fund, page 6. We Energy's Gulf Pump House purchase power, $2,300. Is that
Yep.
just 1 month?
Yep, that's the river pump.
Yeah. I mean, is that running normal? It just doesn't seem to, I don't ever remember seeing one that high before.
Well, we'll check, we'll pull the invoices, but, I mean, I can imagine it could be pretty high. I think we've seen them up at 2,500.
Yeah, I think in the summertime, depending on how much watering
Got
you
it, the
gotta
whole-
do. for
Okay,
the
I hadn't remembered it being that high. That's all I have.
Okay, I don't have any questions. Does anyone from the audience have any questions on the manifest?
Hi, Jean Bradford, 2465 Travis Farm Road. I have a question in regards to those golf carts. I thought we agreed that it was going to be $7,500 for 2 new carts. And this $41.95, it totals $8,390.
That's, the number that you're quoting is with the trade-in. So that's the full price minus, or we didn't take the trade-in out of that. And actually, the county has agreed to buy those 2 carts for the fairgrounds for the trade-in value. So
So-
after you take out the trade-in, it's below that 7,500 that you quoted.
Okay, so we did not spend $7,500. We did not spend $8,390. What did we
We
spend?
spent $8,300, but we're getting $2,000 back on the trade. It's $1,000 apiece. Yeah, we're getting $2,000 back on the trade-in. So the total spent is below.
$6,390. Okay, all right, that makes sense. Then can you explain on the very last about all the taxes here, the summer taxes, and then it says error? What's going on with that? And I think this is page 5. I can't see it, it's so light.
The refund was to Wells Fargo Home Mortgage. They had paid a tax bill in error.
But several times over? There's several.
If you look way to the left, there's many different taxing entities that we collect for. So when that money's receipted in, it goes into each one of those taxing entities, and that's how we have to refund it back out. Because you've got city operating, you've got county operating, then school debt, school operating. In the left-hand column, you can see those names.
So we overpaid? Is that what you're saying?
They paid a parcel to us in error, and we had to refund the money to them.
And that was the bank's doing? That was our doing?
No, it was their doing. They paid a parcel that was legitimately our parcel, they just weren't supposed to pay it. The property owner had, not escrowed with them any longer, so it was their mistake.
Okay, and then my final question, the electrical poles, like $33,000 for 80 poles, I believe it was. Where are those poles being used? What's so bad that we're,
rebuilding a line out by the fairgrounds off of Forest Drive in the past. We're rebuilding, and then he restocks his poles.
and they cost like $400 a piece?
Yes, yes. And with our voltages, our poles right now, when we rebuild, we have to actually add an additional 10 feet to the poles because they're 10 feet too short. So that's why all the poles have to be pulled and replaced.
And that'll be done like over the next year, or is that ongoing right now?
It's ongoing. It's going to go on over the next year and a half.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on the manifest? Okay, I'm looking for a motion to approve manifest 2013-17.
I make a motion, we approve manifest 2013-17 in the amount of $1,032,724.59.
Second.
Motion made by Mark, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Does anyone from the audience wish to address the council on the minutes manifest or any agenda item? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. If not, there'll be a further time for comment on any subject at the end of the meeting. Okay, this evening, the first thing we have is 4 appointments and presentations. The first one is the Jake Mangini Museum Board. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We received a letter from Ms. Sue Geeson. She is requesting a letter of resignation be approved by council. So that's before you. That seat will then be open. So we do have, within the next couple months, we're going to be advertising in general. But I think what we'll do is take a look at putting advertisement out early. And we may have it include some of the just general advertisement.
You put this on TV as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
First, I'd like to thank Sue for being on the board. She's a very helpful, dedicated person. And on that note, I will make a recommendation that Sue Geeson's resignation be approved.
Support.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Mark. Roll call.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Next is the Norway Area Planning Commission, resignation of Marcia Goldswalk. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did again receive a letter requesting council approval for resignation for Ms. Goldswag off the Norway Area Planning Commission. Her particular appointment date or reappointment date is coming up in January. Due to the timing, we every other year we switch having extra member for like for this year we've had the extra member on the Planning Commission compared to the township. But next year, for the next 2 years, we'll have the extra member on the zoning board. So this particular seat actually will not be filled. We're going to, unless, you know, somebody else, or we're going to have an advertisement coming up anyway, but we're going to lose a seat on the Planning Commission. So I'm not recommending filling it at this time, or even advertising to fill it at this time, based on what's happening between us and the township.
Has it been with the Planning Commission? Have they been able to meet their quorum?
Yes. Yes, they have.
How many members do we have on the planning commission then, or will we have as of January 1st?
As of January 1st, we'll have 4. We'll have 4 on a 9-person board. As of currently now, we have 5, so we have the extra person
And then we would have 3
on the zoning
On the
board,
zoning board.
on a 5.
Is there any concern about issues that need to be looked at for just city?
No, we, you know, we talked about that before. If we have city-only issues and the township members, if they're not interested, we can take care of those issues. Because technically, the business at hand needs the quorum, but we do a lot of work with the Planning Commission on just coming to council with recommendations, and that can be done with the members that we have, you know, the 4 remaining members. So that's how I plan to handle that issue.
Even though the township members may not like it, we've always used our Planning Commission to look at those and make recommendations for council. My feeling is the whole Planning Commission should still address them, just like our members would address any township-only issues. To the Planning Commission, that's what they're supposed to do.
I'd like to thank Marcia for her service on the Norway Area Planning Commission, and I will make the recommendation that her resignation be approved.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by Mark. Roll call.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Next is Parks and Recreation Board, resignation of Bob Werser. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the last resignation that we have. It's for the Parks and Rec Committee. And actually, we do have a person that is interested, another resident that's interested in filling that seat. I believe, I've talked with both individuals, and Mr. Werser feels it's time to, he's got some other issues that he's, areas that he's working with. So he was happy to turn this over to Mr. Daryl Harder, whose application is in your packet as well. Like the others mentioned, really appreciate the folks that are serving and folks that are now coming off the board for their individual reasons, but we do appreciate their service. So if we can have council approve that Mr. Werser letter of resignation and Mr. Harder's application.
Make a motion, we accept the letter of resignation from Mr. Werser, thanks from the city council, and they accept the appointment of Daryl Harder.
Second.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
And now we're down to our normal communications for this evening. In communications, we have 5 items this evening. The first one is approval, 2013 local street project change order number 1, crack sealing. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the last meeting, we had a conversation about taking a look at our road budget. The next item is the crush and shape project, and we talked about with the type of bid that we received and the amount of monies left over in the budget, that we should look at our options for. We had the 2 areas in the street project. We have crack sealing. We put aside $20,000 for the crack sealing portion, and then, of course, the crush and shape portion. And again, that's where we were looking at the bidding numbers, and we had a real attractive cost for that project. In working with Farner Asphalt, their recommendation, they didn't have any further recommendation on crack sealing, but they did have a recommendation to micro seal the section street, and it's had a nice discussion with Bob McMahon from Farner Asphalt today. He explained the whole system. It does make sense. However, as I wrote up the change order in the recommendation, because of the concern that possibly we should take advantage of the second item, which is the crush and shape, that I put this item first so that if you decided not to add the additional $35,000 for the section street micro seal, that my recommendation then would be to take and max out the crush and shape portion, and then we'll do as many blocks as we can at that point. Now, we did select, and again, I'm kind of doing two of these together, but I think they kind of work together, that we picked Chestnut Street from US 2 up to almost up to 4th Avenue. We did a project in the early 2000s, 2003, I believe it was, a sewer project. So there's a division line there. It's about 800 feet where they're going to go on Chestnut. And then we're also going to address Stadium Drive, which is in bad shape. That comes out to about $55,000. So the total would be 233, I think, is for those 2 projects. You can go up to 260,000. So I guess my recommendation, if you do not want to do the seal coat this year because of what we're dealing with, to actually make a not to exceed number of 260, and we'll look and see how many additional streets we can do with that.
I guess I'd like to see that done. I mean, for every 2 blocks that we pay for, we get 1 for free. And I'd like to stay with the 20,000 that we initially put up for the crack seal. I know it's important to maintain the stuff that we have, but Next year, the price is probably going to be crazy again, and I think it would be money well spent. And I believe we have some areas that we don't have to do any sewer or water infrastructure underneath the roads. Example would be the 1000 block right over here of Norway Street. And I believe there's a couple other blocks that we could do up by Oak or Ash or wherever anybody else thinks would be important. I'd like to see us do the crush and shape.
I think I agree with that too, with the cost of the asphalt right now. It's probably better spent to get some more streets done. And maybe look at doing this project for next year on that street. The other thing I wanted to bring up was the street by the spring, the intersection, was all potholed out there. A possibility, I know we talked about a project maybe happening there at some point in time, so maybe not worth actually crushing and shaping it, but maybe doing a super patch just to get it leveled out a little bit.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is, it's like this Railroad Avenue project that we're going to be working on. They have different designations of the roads, and they have a number of our roads that are designated under what they call the federal aid system, and it's based on through traffic or coming off of, say, the U.S. highways or county roads. And what I'm trying to do is get 16th Avenue, 14th Avenue, and Scenic designated into this federal aid system so that we can take advantage of the grant monies for that project. I will know that this winter, whether it's designated. If it gets designated, then I need to work with like Iron Mountain and Kingsford, because we're in that small urban program. I need to actually work on when it will be scheduled. If we are declined, if they turn us down, then we're into the local funding, and then we can look at that as a priority, because obviously those areas have some pretty rough roads as well. So, but I don't want to go in, like I mentioned, I don't want to go in and do all this crush and shape work, and then it turns out we could have it under the federal aid, which would be a total reconstruct, and we'll get it done.
I don't think we should crush and shape that this year, but at least if we could even do a super patch.
We can do a super patch for about $6,000.
Yeah, I think it would be well worth it just to get that
Yeah.
road smoothed out, because it's really in bad shape. And if we can get a couple of years out of the super patch, and then look at rebuilding it down the road, I think that would be the best idea.
So it's still going to take us, if we're designated this winter, it's still going to take us 3 years probably to get our project into the mix. I mean, they could take pity on us and put our project right up in the beginning, in the front, but
We won't count on that.
we'll count on that, because Iron Mountain and Kingsford have had their projects, and they're not actually happy that we're coming in with them. So I'll do my best to muscle in, but.
One question right here on the crack ceiling. It says here, section street from south edge of pavement US 2 to Pine Street, including those portions sometimes referred to as Forest Drive. How far are they going on Forest Drive? Does
Well-
Forest Drive start at Stadium and that's where section ends? Or does it
That's correct.
go beyond that?
No, that's where Forest Drive starts, is
Okay.
at Stadium. And actually, I got a new quote today, it's 35 to just go up to Stadium. And then it's an additional, I want to say it's an additional 20 to go beyond on Forest Drive. So,
The micro seal.
for the micro seal,
Micro
yes.
seal.
How does that differ from crack sealing?
Well, crack sealing is just taking tar and you clean out the crack and you put the tar in. You want to keep the water from getting in underneath the crack. Micro seal is actually a 1/4 to 3/8 inch aggregate surface that's put over the top. It will fill in any depressions.
They don't cut it?
They don't cut it. They do crack seal first, and then they come across and they put this micro seal over the top. It's a drivable surface. Had a long talk with Mr. McManus today on exactly the performance of the material. Another good reason maybe not to do it this year is that they've had some trouble in the past with mixed designs and having it actually bind to the current road surface. But this past year, they have a new mixed design, and it has really, really good results. Now, they've been using it only for this year, but all the test results that they've been having or that they've done on this mixed design have really positive results. So, you'd be in a better position next year to actually have results from a year of having it down. But there's a
a whole series of looking at the road and the condition and when you put some of these down and when you don't. So,
Well, well, I shouldn't say strictly, but I mean, everybody has their pros and cons, and my big thing is Section Street is probably the most heavily trafficked,
yeah.
heavily traveled street in town.
If we don't address it this year, we have to address it.
We have to address it next
We
year.
have to. It's,
I got your word on that?
we're gonna have to get it budgeted, pass the budget. So. It's right teetering right now. It's beyond crack sealing. And if we wait another couple of
And
years,
it's only
3 years,
like
it's gonna
12
be-
years old.
It's gonna be past that, like most of the other streets.
Dr. Hayes, what's your thought?
Well, I certainly like to maintain what we got rather than, but I'm willing to go either way. If you want to spend the extra, to get an extra block of pavement someplace, but again, I'd like to see us maintain what we've got.
What's staff's recommendation, Ray?
At this point, looking at the bidding that we have for the crush and shape and really looking at, we are getting the worst areas or the most important areas for the crack sealing done this year, which we have to spend that $20,000 to get that done. I'm comfortable with going with some additional blocks. But again, they're starting the work tomorrow on Saginaw. That's why I'm recommending that that you pass the 260, not to exceed 260,000, and then we'll work out a block or two, whatever we can work out. I think you're only gonna get about another block and a half. I don't think you're gonna, we're talking, less than $30,000, so it's maybe 2 blocks out of that, depending on the width and the length. So that'll give us flexibility to work with Baco and say, do this,
Well,
get it done.
I think I agree with what Mark and Chris are saying on this and what you're kind of recommending there. With the price of asphalt this year, we gotta do the extra blocks. But and I agree with Chris, I think we should, even in a temporary, look to super patch that, the end by the spring. Just,
We should take some of the monies out of the 260 though to do that, because otherwise we're gonna be dipping into, something that we hadn't planned on.
It'd be nice if we did this super patch while they had a whacker in town, so it was packed right.
Yeah, we can do it
Maybe
while
we
they're
could
here.
get them up there just to pack it down once
Yeah.
we laid it down, because that means a world of difference.
yeah, it does.
Yeah.
That's right. I think we should do the extra blocks with the super patch by the spring.
Well, I guess with that, I'll make a motion that we deny the change order number 1 for the extra crack patch and go with just a $20,000. And should I do the second one too?
Go ahead.
Change order number 1 with the crush and shape not to exceed the $260,000.
Second.
Motion made by Mark, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Okay, next we have Resolution 2013-26, establishing a moratorium regarding the establishment of businesses engaged in the dispensation or distribution of marijuana. This has been something we've been approving every 6 months for a while now. This is just a 6-month renewal. We can't, from what we had gathered when we first wrote it, we can't approve it for longer than 6 months. It has to be revisited every 6 months. So this is just renewing what we already have in place. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2013-26.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda is Resolution 2013-27, liquor license for Sons of the American Legion. I had a chance to talk with our police chief, and from what he was telling me, that this is a new procedure in approving liquor licenses, This is, what we are doing here is we're passing this resolution to pre-approve it that says if they do, if the Sons of American Legion does everything they're supposed to do and follows all the guidelines, that we will approve their liquor license. That way they don't go through all the steps and the state goes through all the steps to then have it denied. So that's what this is. This is pre-approving it so long as they follow everything they're supposed to do.
What type of it doesn't say much about, that I got out of it here, what type of a liquor license is it, and what does it entail?
It's not an open license, it's still a club license.
It's still just a club license?
I believe
That's, so
so,
that's
yeah.
just a renewal then, correct?
Basically, yeah, it's a
Okay.
renewal.
Yeah, it's just a change in procedure. Before, we'd wait till the end and
Oh,
approve it when it was
okay.
done. This now says, we're going to approve it if they follow all the guidelines.
But it's just a renewal of the current license, there's no change in it?
It is, they, you know, that, since they picked up a couple of additional events, such as steak night, there's been, some, I don't want to say scrutiny, but there's been some observation from liquor control, you know, because of the higher activity. So, you know, they obviously want to make sure that they're up to speed.
Any other questions, comments? If not, looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that Resolution 2013-27 be approved.
Support?
Motion made by Lee, supported by Mark. Roll call.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
The last thing on our communications for the evening, Resolution 2013-28, vacate city-owned right-of-way. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did receive a request from Mary Mason. She's looking at purchasing property up in an area that I'm showing in your map, area next to Butcher Hill, going up Hillcrest. And she's actually was in today. She did purchase the property, but she made a request to vacate these areas as noticed or as indicated. There's a street, it is 13th Avenue, and there's a couple of alleys within that block. Part of the procedure, or the procedure, is we put together a resolution to vacate. We put that resolution, or the council reviews the resolution that's presented to them, and you only approve it based on saying that it's going into the paper for publication. And then we have to have a public hearing at our next meeting to review that resolution. You won't actually pass the resolution until, or you review whether you're going to pass the resolution at a public hearing. So tonight, you just want to look at that resolution to see if it's in order and instruct us to go advertise for public hearing. So you're not actually passing the vacating, you're just approving to go to public hearing.
Jay, have you had a chance to look at this to make sure the description's correct?
Yes, I did. As far as I could tell, it was. I just got this morning, but it appears correct, and what I will do is I will double check with Jim Weiss.
We did that
as
today,
well.
and it's in good shape.
And it appears to be accurate based on the maps and the photographs.
All right, is there any other questions, comments? So you want to,
Let's make a motion to approve the resolution to go to public hearing and instruct staff to schedule the public hearing.
I'll make a motion that public hearing be scheduled to hear the matter of vacating the row.
Support?
motion made by Lee, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
And that's our business for this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Does anyone wish to come up and address the council on any subject? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Catherine Hart, 2501 Travis Farm Road. I'm curious, at the last meeting, there was an issue brought up where an additional DPW worker was hired. Whatever happened with that? You were going into executive session to
We didn't
discuss
go
the
in- we
matter,
didn't go into any-
whatever happened?
We didn't, it was an electric
Electric
department.
department.
Okay.
We
Was
never
that
went into
resolved,
any
or?
We never went into any executive session.
Okay.
I don't know, I've talked to the rest of council, and from what they said at the meeting, the general feeling, Mark disagreed with this, but that the council was okay with having the extra person hired if it was needed, because that's how we set it up in the budget. And our issue was, they were hired without first trying a four-man crew to show that it was needed.
Okay.
And it was more with how it was done, not the guy themselves, the person themselves, but the procedure used to hire him. There should have been a review of a four-man crew to give it a chance. Instead, it was, the fifth one was hired right away. Three were hired at one time instead of two.
Okay. Thank you.
I just have one question, quick question. Regarding your payroll, like it's $80,000 for 2 weeks. What is the lowest paid person that works for the city of Norway?
Per hour?
Right,
We have our summer help at $8 per hour.
the summer help. I'm talking about
Full-time?
full-time.
We have $14, 14, what's 14, 30?
1412 is the permanent part.
14 term, 12?
$14.12 per hour is the lowest paid individual full-time for the city of
That's
Norway.
permanent part.
It's part-time, but it's permanent.
Pardon me?
It's a permanent part-time job. They work 30 hours a week versus 40.
They're there for all year, they're not laid off in the winter, or they don't go back to school in the winter, that kind of thing.
Well, then let me ask, what about a full-time 40-hour per week? What is the lowest paid employee?
I'd be guessing 20
Something like 20, yeah,
to 21.
yeah, somewhere in there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address the council?
My name is Bill Asen, 507 Second Avenue. When they do their leaf cleanup in the fall, why do they wait till all the leaves are down and blown around instead of doing it maybe a couple times? It's always the end of October usually, isn't it, close to it?
Right, yeah.
Some years the leaves are all down and all over the place already. Wouldn't it save your sewer system a little bit too to pick these up a couple times rather than only once?
It's a labor-intensive project, so, I mean, it's a
Well,
function of labor.
labor-intensive, yeah, I think, I mean, if the supervision is there, you could do it. I think you know what I mean.
I think it's always, well, not always, but it's been that, at least recently, just been the one time, because of the amount of labor it takes and the cost in doing it multiple
Now,
times.
did the street sweeper work? I thought that, you had said that the street sweeper.
Well, first of all, they're not supposed to put your leaves in the street.
I know that.
Okay. And then the street sweeper doesn't do a good job picking up the leaves, so you have to use the actual
I know.
vacuum.
Right, that vacuum thing.
So
Right.
then you would understand what that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
No, I know you aren't
Yeah.
supposed to leave in the street. The
Yeah.
leaves I get are not from my trees anyway, because I pick mine up and dispose of them myself. They're from everybody else. But that's how it goes. But by the time that they usually will get around to doing it, a lot of people put the leaves on their boulevard like they're supposed to, but then if they dry out and they blow all around, then it's a mess again, you know. I just thought it might be an advantage to do one pickup. If the leaves drop early, do one pickup before that time. You might get the biggest percentage of them then. I just thought it makes sense to think about it anyway. Thank
It'd
you.
be something we'd look at depending on the year, like you said, if they drop early or late.
Yeah, there's some years they drop real early. Sometimes they aren't down by the end of October hardly yet, but,
I don't think there's a set date they do it. It's kind of based on when the majority of the leaves are down.
okay.
They also have to retrofit the vehicle. You know, they're the one truck that they have to put the
That vacuum on?
vacuum on or the cage. You know,
You're
that they use.
still, if, I don't do, but you're still supposed to put them on the boulevards then, right? So that they can
Yeah,
suck
not
them
in the
up easy?
street, on the boulevard.
Yeah, okay, good.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address the council? Okay, Lee.
I got a few comments here. I'd like to put in a little plug for the Norway Area Preservation Society. They're having their 7 o'clock Saturday on the 14th at the Dickinson County Fairgrounds. They will have food and beverage, and the entertainment will be whitewater. Question for you, Ray. How are we coming on these applications for the permanent part-time garbage job?
I haven't checked to see the numbers. We've got a few in.
Okay. And I'd also like to wish good luck to the new owner of the Current, who's a local person. Nice to keep that paper going. I find it very interesting myself. And I would also like to know how the report came out on our MERS actuarial.
I haven't seen that yet.
It's been
gonna
over
take-
a month.
Yeah, it takes a while.
Okay. And the last thing I have here is, I noticed on Roshan Road that Dickinson County put in a new culvert there along US 2. And I noticed a manhole there, but it's just a manhole. I don't know where it goes to. It's not a storm sewer drain, but it's a manhole with a heavy cover on it. And I was wondering, what's our liability on that gonna be? Because that road is a mess after every washout we get. Plus, there's 3 other ones around town that you go back and work on after every heavy rain. One of them is Hillcrest Drive, the other's the TV Tower Road, and then Valley View Drive where it runs into Scenic Drive. It seems like every year after every heavy rain, we regrade it, spend hours there, equipment, new gravel, next rain, back again. I'd like to know if we're gonna really plan on doing something about that, and especially on Roshan Road there, because I can just see a heavy rain right now. That is gonna make one mess, and if it plugs up that culvert, who knows?
Okay,
That's all I have.
Dr. Hayes.
I'll reserve time at the end possibly, but no comments.
Chris.
I just have one question on the manifest. We switched our gas over to, was it Integrisys or a different company for billing?
Yeah,
Or-
it's still through DTE.
It is still through DT. I was just curious why we're,
It's through DTE, it's just a different, on the bill it tells us, I think it's, is it universal gas or
Okay.
something like that?
but we still pay
We're paying
DTE?
that rate we locked in.
Okay, but we pay DTE that rate? Okay,
We still pay them,
okay,
that's just your provider.
okay, all right, that's all.
Yeah, there's still a fee from the company, from DTE, because they're using their gas lines.
Sure, I just thought we would be paying the company versus paying DTE.
Yeah, because they actually own the gas lines. We're just paying commodity for the gas, not the distribution. So, that's all.
Mark.
I got a couple here. Ray, there's an alley that goes behind Mary's house over there. I got a guy that keeps calling me, trying to get a travel trailer up there. There's like a ski jump right when you go off of the street, like by the sidewalk. And I think we should just maybe throw a little bit of cold patch in there. I think they could just take the front end loader with a couple wheelbarrows of cold patch and straighten that problem out. He doesn't have anywhere to park his RV, and if he goes up that hill, and I've had a couple other people complain about that, there's a heck of a jump there. It'll rip the underside off of the septic system. And he doesn't have, people don't have any place to park the RVs, and I think if it's a small fix, that we should look into it. I don't know what alley it is by Mary's house, but she'll square it away with you.
It's not the one with the rock, is it? It's not the one with the rock, is it?
That's my old one.
That's your old alley, okay.
The irrigation pumps, I looked on the executive session. The irrigation pumps that some of them want to put in, coming from Strawberry Lake across city property, I don't believe it's a good idea. Ray had said something about the liability, because you do have to have a power cord running across there. I do think that that should be a no on that situation.
I agree with you on that, Mark. I don't like people using city property anyway. I've kind of got that established as my position on it. So on that, I agree. I think it should be a general no. We should tell them to get their stuff off and then not let anybody new.
Yeah, I mean, there's an open power line that's not buried or nothing running across the top of the ground.
Can we just make sure that we have an overall consensus? Because, there are a couple people that are currently doing that, and we want to make sure, Jim and I talked about it, we want to make sure we're consistent. I mean, if we go to them and say you have to remove, we want to make sure that, that we're consistent. And this is really coming up because of a new request, and I give the people credit for coming and asking ahead of time. But we can't tell them no if we're letting other people do it, so it's one of those, that's why I'm bringing it up.
What's the rest of the council's feeling?
I see nothing wrong with it as long as they sign off on the liability and they got the line buried, the power buried.
The one that has power is running it through a conduit through the storm sewer.
I see no problem with that. As long as the city's not liable. I mean, if they sign off on it, if something happens, it's their problem.
People are pumping out of the lake, that's less water we have to pump out of the lake, so I'd rather see people have green lawns and good gardens, so I have no objection to it.
And do we have them all? How many more are out there that we don't know about?
Yeah, just a couple I mentioned.
It would be a matter if we found them, then we'd deal with them as we found them.
No,
Sure.
I see nothing wrong with it as long as they sign a waiver.
Well, Chris, it comes down to you.
I guess I see both sides of it, but I'm assuming that no one asked for permission on the other ones, they just went and did it. I guess I kind of have a problem with that, just from an ethical standpoint, but I don't think we should allow any new ones going in. I do see it as a liability issue as well. Even though they sign off on it, people can still come up with reasons for going after the city, so I guess I would say at this point, no to it.
Okay.
Somebody should make a motion then.
I'll make a motion that we don't allow people to use the city property for irrigation with the irrigation system running above ground. Or actually, it would be,
Some of them are going through the.
it would be any city property
Across the
for
city property.
irrigation.
I'll support that. Motion made by Mark, supported by myself. Roll call.
All right, Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
No.
Dr. Hayes?
No,
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Okay. You've got your direction.
Thank you.
Okay.
I guess I'd like a little information. I've heard bits and pieces about the injury with the electric guy that was just hired that could have been deadly. I would like some kind of information, so when somebody bumps into me downtown and asks me a question, I know what to tell them.
First of all, I haven't had a chance to finish the investigation, nor have we finished talking with the employee and going through the full discussion, so I don't believe that it would be, in that case, especially, I don't want to say anything publicly, obviously, and I've had I really don't, I'm not comfortable as a personnel manager to be talking about incidents publicly anyway. If someone asks about details, they're really not, I guess they're not really privy to personnel matters.
Okay,
You know,
so
those
just
are-
send them down here?
You can send them down here, and I'll tell them no, because, personnel matters are personnel matters. I mean, you go to another company, even if it's a public company, and they're not gonna give you personnel matters, so it's an incident, the people know that we had an accident, and we're dealing with it. It's not gonna happen again. That's the type of action plan that we're making. So,
I guess
I
I
just-
hope the right steps are taken.
yeah, that's my job, is to make sure that we handle these issues, but I just don't believe that, you know, the employee has rights, and every company employee has rights, and even though they're public.
I didn't realize that the person wasn't talked to, and I just,
Well, I
hope
was,
that-
you know, I was out last week, and, you know, I got back in Friday afternoon and spent a good portion of the time getting this information out to you guys. Today, I talked with some of our staff, talked with Tim, who was on the job. Tomorrow, I'm gonna talk with our safety folks, and I'm gonna talk to the employee. So that's as far as I wanna go
Okay.
at this point. I mean, I can give you my thoughts privately. I
Okay.
would ask that you withhold
like to
those,
hear 'em.
you know, to yourself, but I mean, it's not that I'm gonna withhold information from you,
Okay.
but I don't want that to
yeah.
be disseminated though
Sure.
across the community, because I think employees have rights, and I think
Sure.
it's just
okay.
be responsible.
I got a concern with the manholes on Saginaw Street. Joe had said that we were gonna be taking care of those. It looks like there's several that need to be done before the crush and shape starts, and they're starting to grind tomorrow.
Yeah, they're gonna be grinding tomorrow. Those are, must be the catch basins, because we don't
Yeah.
have a sewer.
Yes.
Yeah, they've done some work on those already, so it's a matter of shaping them into the existing elevations. I mean,
It looks like there's, over by Chris's place there, it looks like there's a couple that need to be lifted.
they need to be
They're,
lifted.
they're caulked, and I
Well,
was, you
I'm
know,
gonna be out there tomorrow morning, because I don't know if they're probably not gonna start till 9 o'clock, at least that's what they told me. And then I wanted to get with Dave tomorrow morning, and there's a drainage question that came up from a resident down on the south side, and I wanna get over and take a look at it, so we can take a walkthrough. You
because
know,
the
as they
crush, that surface grinder, once they start, I mean, they're gonna be down to the end of that street in no time.
Oh, it
When
only
they
take a
went
couple
down to-
days.
When they went down the highway, I mean, they
Yeah.
could do that block in one day.
Yeah.
And we didn't even start on getting the storm sewer squared away.
Well, I wanna get them over there and take a look at it.
I have a couple concerns with the utility directing position. I don't, I know we can't go into closed session, but I do feel that we have some serious problems with the person in the utility director position. I don't foresee that he's filling our needs for the $119,000 that we're paying him. You know, we just promoted, right now we have a working foreman in every department. We just promoted Timmy Brew into the electric department, and Tim does a real good job for us. But I was told before, when this was brought in as a utility director, that we weren't gonna have these working foreman people, because before, the working foreman, Ray was in charge of the working foreman. Now we have the working foreman go to the utility director, which goes to Ray. And I don't foresee that we're getting our bang for our buck. We've had some issues. A couple that I've listed here is the fairgrounds. I look back at the fairgrounds quote that was made by the utility director, and out of a $17,000 project, which the quote was, he underbid it by $9,000. And that fell back onto the utility customers in the electric department that paid for that project at the fairgrounds. It's reflected in your rates. I look at the Red Line project. I haven't seen a bill for the Red Line project. They started to build that building over there, and they're doing a very good job. It looks real good. The power line was too close to the peak of the roof. They were told that they could put the building in there, that it would be no problem. Ray, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just getting some of the information. I don't know if I have it all. That they put in another pole versus lifting the power line over there on the weekend that Red Line wanted to do it. They put in another pole, and they ditched in an underground service over there at no charge to Red Line. We just got through this.
I think that's.
We just went through this
Yeah, I
with
don't think
Steve
that's
Spera and problems with his electrical extension, and
I don't think that's correct, because based on what I know happened, the height of the building was changed from the original quote, and when that was brought up, another quote was given to the property owner for underground. So he's expected to pay that underground quote.
I was told that it wasn't gonna be built.
I asked the owner, and he said he paid for it. I
Okay,
asked him
that's-
if he paid for that line, he said, yes, I did.
So he already paid for it?
He said, well, he didn't say he actually paid for it, he's either paid for it or is going to pay for it. Quote, I said, Mr. Genron, did you pay for that? Did you have to pay for that? He said, yes, I did.
Okay.
And I have to take his word for it.
You know, and then I'm still, I have a problem with, we've been hashing this around, and I know it's not all the utility director's position, that second guy, or that third guy was hired on the electric department for $92,000. I still have a problem with that, and I don't know. I was told by a couple people that we really didn't need that other guy over there. So, you know.
Those
and-
other
and-
people weren't the city manager, though.
Yeah, I realize that. But
I
it
mean, I'm
it
the
was done,
operations-
it was done behind the council recommendations, Ray.
I know, but I made that decision. I allowed him to hire that extra person. I evaluated the operations. You hire me to evaluate the operations. You hire me as the personnel manager of this city. And just like in dealing with issues with accidents, if you have issues with individuals, you can bring them to me, and I'll look into those, and I'll talk to those individuals.
But the council made it perfectly clear, and you went against what the council said to do, Ray. I don't understand that, and I know we're beating a dead horse, but I have a problem with that. I got a bad problem with it.
Where a problem comes in is something that needs to be worked on is communication, communicating it to the council before it was done, communicating the reasons why. That was never, that, to my knowledge, still has never been done.
Okay, well, this is what's going to happen. You, or we, as a utility, have a responsibility to manage the utility, the work out in the field. I talked with Tim today, and I asked him that question. I said, you know, we're working on reconstructing that line down by the fairgrounds, all right? And I said, can you do that job if we have one less person? And he's basically told me that if we have 4 people, we are a maintenance organization. Now, we can do the line, but we're going to bid it out. And we're going to use contractors, and we're going to bid it out. So when we do those projects, overall, it's going to cost us, the amount of projects we have, it's going to cost us more in the long run. And we have some serious needs for our customers in building out those lines. I mean, we have south of town, we have heading out to Vulcan, Perning Lane. I mean, there's 10 to 15 years worth of work that
But the
we need to get
bottom
done.
line was the council said that we wanted to try it, and we did not try it. And it, like Jeremy says,
Well-
we're getting handed this stuff after the fact, and I'm not going to go for that. I got a real hard time with it. And there's other things with this utility director position. I mean, he's
Some of
dragging...
your facts are not accurate. I'm going to say that right now. Some of your facts are not accurate. When I ran
Which
the
other
position,
facts are not accurate?
when I ran that position, my recommendation, I was on the job for 2 months, and I made a recommendation based on my 10 years of experience running projects and running, you know, doing this type of work. And I said, the best way to manage the city operations is to have that position and have working foremen. Because you had a series of superintendents and you had working foremen. So you actually had multiple layers of supervision, and you still had that up until the last year and a half.
But we are not even getting asked what our thoughts are. I talked to Jeremy on it. Jeremy didn't know you were going to promote Tim Brew into that area, and it was just a promotion handed out. I mean, how many people do you need to go between the workforce
That's not true,
and the
Mark.
management, Ray?
Mark,
How many people do you need?
That's not true, Mark.
When,
That's
when,
not true.
when we put
We
in the,
talked about it.
when we put in the utility superintendent, as I understand and remember it, it was we were going to have working foremen. The superintendent was to replace the two utility supervisors, because John Zanone wasn't the working foreman; he was a utility supervisor, and that was also replacing the electric utility supervisor. We were combining those positions into one. That would be the utility superintendent with strong working foremen under him. That's as I remember when we approved it. I don't know what the rest of the council.
And we talked about hiring a working foreman.
Right,
And we decided to,
We were going to hire.
I agreed to allow Tim. you know.
I mean, there
to
comes a
promote
point
that.
when you're paying somebody $119,000 with benefits, and then you're giving everybody a raise to be a working foreman. I mean, you got to draw the line somewhere. We're a town of 2,500 people.
We're a $12 million organization.
Yeah, I
Your working
realize that.
foreman- Your working foremen are not handling the budget issues that we need to handle. And the day-to-day, you know, there's a whole series of operating questions. I mean, I don't go in and ask and tell the mechanic how to do my engine. You know, I mean, he says I need something, I'd maybe question him, but I don't tell him how to do the work. I mean, you hire me
You
to
don't tell them how to
evaluate
do
the
the work,
operations.
but you need to okay the staffing before you go out and give promotions.
And I have, and from the day I was hired, we've gone from 39 full-time employees to 28.
Yeah, but you
So-
also modernized the hydro that took care of a couple retirees
Three.
that were down there.
3. So we're making some operational changes and upgrading in what we're doing, and we have more work on our plate now than we did 12 years ago when I came here. So, I mean,
What I would,
it's
what
just
I
a
would
difference of
recommend,
opinions.
one thing I would recommend now, if there's issues with the utility superintendent or the operation in general, we get a subcommittee from the council, 2 from the council, to sit down with Mr. Anderson to go over what those issues are. And begin at least working back and forth between the council and the staff that way.
I mean, you know, out of the last, you can't tell a guy to a certain extent when he can take his vacation, but he's off for 3 weeks in a row now. He just hired 3 new electric guys and a secretary, and the secretary was only on the job, correct me if I'm wrong, 1 week, and he leaves town for 3 weeks. And then he was on vacation, I think it was 2 weeks ago. Out of the last 5 weeks, he's been off 4. So if that tells you what's being done, I have no idea.
Well, to me, he's entitled to his vacation, and under Ronald Reagan, he used to refer to as the trickle-down theory. I refer to as the trickle-up theory to the manager. Everything was cleared with him. He gave him permission to be off. And as far as the extra man hired, all along, the way I remember it, the committee, electrical committee with the electrical engineers on it and the Kraus engineering firm, they were recommended running our department, electric department, with 5.5 people. We got 5. Okay, we had all the people retire, the ones that retired. We made an agreement from, I believe it was Energist, to hire 2 people to try and see if they could fill in. They did. Now we've hired our own people. We've got the 3, which brings us back to 5, which is not the 5.5, and the 5 we can live with. But I didn't like the idea that the 3 were hired. They were going to get hired anyway, but that I was not informed of it. And that was a lack of communication. But I said, it all falls on Ray. He's been hired by the city, previous councils, to do a job. He's doing the best he can do. And if we have an issue with anybody or anything, it trickles up to Ray.
Just for the information of the people that are listening to this, under the charter, the city manager is the personnel director, and ultimately he makes the decisions as to who gets hired and fired. I don't expect that I have as many communications on these sort of issues as the council members do with our manager, but it's been my experience in the years that I've been here that the managers have generally, and Mr. Anderson is one of them, is touch base with the council on these hirings. Now, they may not agree with what happened here. I have no opinion on that. He is not obligated as such, but I think it's always been good practice, and it's been my experience in the past managers I've worked with, for the most part, not all, but most. And certainly, Mr. Anderson is one of them that has, I thought, done that. Communicated with the council. Now, they may be upset about the way this was handled. I can't address that. All I can say is that he does have the right to do that. Moreover, and it's important to keep in mind, that the contract that Mr. Pickard has with the city is he works directly for the manager, all right? And the manager supervises him. And if you have complaints about his job, you bring it to the manager. You don't bring it out at a public meeting when Joe isn't here to defend himself. I think that's the way to go. I think Mr. Oja's suggestion that the 2 council members perhaps step up and work with the manager, consult with him about these issues, is a good way to done. we've done this in the past on some of these minor issues. When I say minor, I mean, they didn't require the full council to be involved initially, and it's worked out quite well. I think Mr. Mangini's been on a couple of these, and I think Mr. Bablani, you may have been on one or two. And this may be a good opportunity for the two of you again, perhaps to step up and take a look at it, or somebody from the council, 2 members from the council consult with the manager. I will tell you that the manager did what he was allowed to do under the charter. He's done nothing to violate the charter. He's done nothing to violate his contract. He's done nothing to do anything unlawful. You may not like the way it was handled, and that's an opinion that the council can voice to the manager. But legally, he had the right to do it. My understanding sitting through this meeting is that there was a general consensus that some hiring had to be done, but beyond that, I don't have any opinion other than Mr. Anderson did do his job, and he did not violate his obligation to the council or to the people of this community.
I guess I'd like to sit in on a
Yep.
2-person board.
Go ahead. Lee, would you want to sit in on that one?
Can we draw straws?
I'm just asking. You can-
I'll be on. Okay, no problem.
Thank you. So we'll work out when you two can get together and get together with Mr. Anderson.
Anytime, Ray.
Okay.
That's all I got.
I got nothing I want to add tonight. Mary? Tricia? Jay?
No, I have nothing further, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
I have nothing further.
We have no executive session this evening, so I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Support.
Motion made by Mark, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.